The shadow in room 309. It was supposed to be a quick overnight stay. Just a stop on the way to something more important. That's what Daniel told himself as he pulled into the empty parking lot of the Pinewood Inn, an old roadside motel on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered weakly against the dark sky, buzzing like a dying insect. Daniel checked his phone. No signal. Great. A strange unease settled over him, like a distant whisper he couldn't quite hear, warning him to turn back. The lobby was dimly lit, the stale scent of old carpet and something metallic lingering in the air. Behind the counter, an elderly woman sat stiffly, her deep-set eyes locked onto Daniel the moment he entered. "Need a room?" Her voice was dry, cracked like old parchment. "Yeah. Just for the night." She slid an old-fashioned key across the desk. No electronic key cards, just a solid brass key with a worn leather fob. "Room 309. "Sleep well," she murmured, almost like a warning. Her eyes never blinked. Daniel took the key and walked down the eerily quiet corridor. The carpet was threadbare, the wallpaper peeling in spots. Every few doors, he noticed deep scratches along the frames, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. A strange, foul scent hung in the air, like damp wood and something else, something rotten. His room was at the very end of the hall. He turned the key, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The room was exactly what he expected: outdated furniture, a flickering bedside lamp, and a musty smell that suggested the sheets hadn't been washed in years. But then he noticed something else. A single chair in the corner of the room, facing the bed. It was an old wooden chair, scratched and worn, but the strange thing was, it was angled slightly, as if it had just been moved. A faint indentation was on the seat, as if someone or something had been sitting there recently. The air felt thick, heavy, as if something unseen was watching him. Daniel swallowed hard and forced a laugh at himself. "You're just tired." He pulled the chair to the desk, turned on his laptop, and tried to check his emails. But no Wi-Fi. No signal. Nothing. Frustrated, he decided to shower and go straight to bed. The bathroom mirror was cracked, distorting his reflection just enough to make his own face feel unfamiliar. As he stepped into the shower, the water ran dark for a few seconds before clearing. His skin crawled. A shadow passed behind the curtain, stretching unnaturally as if it had too many limbs. It slithered rather than moved, its form shifting in ways that defied logic, pooling into a grotesque, shifting mass before vanishing into the darkness. He froze, holding his breath, heart pounding. He yanked the curtain back. Nothing. Just an empty bathroom. But the mirror, it was different now. A handprint. A wet, smeared handprint pressed against the glass. Long fingers. Too long. When he stepped out, the chair had moved. It was back in its original spot, facing the bed. Daniel froze, his breath catching in his throat. He was alone. The door was locked. No one had come in. Then the TV turned on. Static. A faint whisper threading through the crackling white noise. His name. Daniel grabbed the remote and turned it off. The silence that followed was heavier than before, as if something unseen had been disturbed. He climbed into bed, pulling the covers up, trying to ignore the chair. He turned onto his side, away from it. Then he heard it. A creaking sound. Like wood shifting. Like someone was sitting down in that chair. Daniel didn't move. He didn't dare turn around. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to run, but he couldn't. He couldn't even breathe. Then, a whisper. Right behind him. "Leave." His heart stopped. He bolted upright, flicking on the bedside lamp. The chair was empty. But it was closer. Almost touching the bed. Then the air grew heavy. The wall seemed to pulse. The dim light flickered erratically. Daniel's breath came out in short gasps. Shadows moved along the walls, elongated, shifting unnaturally. A sudden, overwhelming sense of dread filled the room, like an invisible weight pressing down on his chest. The whisper came again, but now it was everywhere, curling around his ears, sinking into his bones. "Get out." Daniel grabbed his keys. He didn't care about his bag, his laptop, nothing. He needed to get out. He yanked the door open and sprinted down the hallway. The old woman at the front desk was gone. The lobby was pitch black. The wall seemed closer than before, as if the motel itself was closing in on him. As he reached his car, fumbling to unlock the door, he risked one last glance back at the motel. The curtain in room 309 shifted. Just slightly. And then, two eyes stared back at him. Hollow. Black. Watching. The curtain twitched again, and this time, the shape behind it leaned forward. A mouth grinning, impossibly wide, filled with jagged, blackened teeth emerged from the darkness. A loud bang from inside the room. The door slammed shut on its own. Daniel didn't stick around to see what it belonged to. He peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching against the pavement, not slowing until he was miles away. It was only later, when he was safe in another town, that he thought to check his phone again. Finally, a signal. He googled Pinewood in room 309 just to see if he'd been imagining things. And there it was. A news article. A murder. Decades ago. A man strangled in his sleep by an unseen force. Guests reporting whispers, furniture moving, an invisible presence watching them. The last line made Daniel's blood run cold. The only consistent detail? A chair in the corner of the room, always facing the bed. And below the article, a grainy black and white photo. The chair in the image was old, its wood darkened with something that looked too much like dried blood. Shadows clung unnaturally to its edges, as though something unseen was still sitting there, watching. Of the chair. And something sitting in it. Something that looked eerily like him. Then, his phone screen flickered. A message appeared. "You left too soon." His reflection in the phone screen twisted. The grin stretched wider, unnatural, splitting his face apart like a cracked mask. The teeth lengthened into jagged points, too sharp, too many. The hollow eyes, voids of infinite black, stared back at him, blinking out of sync, as if something inside was struggling to mimic him, but failing grotesquely. And behind him, the chair creaked.